The gates of Cedar Ridge whispered open with mechanical grace, revealing a world too perfect to be real. Rows of flawless homes stood like obedient soldiers, their lawns trimmed to military precision. Fresh white fences, identical rose bushes, and the same bland American flag fluttered on every porch. To most, it looked like a dream. To Ethan Cole, it looked suspicious. He guided his pickup down Maple Bloom Lane, the twins in the backseat gawking through the windows. "Dad, is this a movie set?" Caleb asked. "Feels like it," Ethan muttered. After 10 years in the intelligence field and 5 in Black Ops, Ethan knew when a place was trying too hard to look normal. He didn't like it. He parked in front of their new house, a beautiful 2-story with blue shutters, a wide porch, and not a single leaf out of place. A sign beside the door read, "This property complies with HOA Standard 13A. Before he could grab a single box from the truck, a woman approached. Tall, bleach blonde, smile tight as piano wire. "Welcome to Cedar Ridge. I'm Linda Graff, HOA president." She didn't extend a hand, just held out a clipboard. "We take community standards very seriously," she said. "Here's your compliance packet. Make sure your children don't leave bikes on the lawn, and all toys must be stored out of public view at all times. Also, noise after 6 p.m. is discouraged." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "They're kids. They make noise." Linda's smile didn't falter. "We have ways of handling noise." That night, Ethan unpacked while the twins played in the backyard. Caleb shouted once, just once, and within minutes, a golf cart rolled by the house. A man in a green polo wrote something on a tablet and drove off without a word. "Creepy," Mia whispered. The next morning, 3 violation notices sat in the mailbox. 1 for visible recreational equipment, Mia's jump rope. 1 for uncontained pet behavior, their dog barked once. And 1 for child unsupervised in public area. Caleb waved at a neighbor while Ethan unloaded boxes. He laughed it off at first, until he saw the drone. It hovered silently above the house around midnight, blinking red, watching, recording. Ethan stood on the porch, arms crossed, staring back. Eventually, it zipped off. 2 days later, he found a sealed envelope tucked inside the twins' backpack. No stamp, no address, just a note inside. "Unstructured children threaten community harmony. We offer correction before consequences." Ethan's fingers curled around the paper, his blood cold. He scanned the neighborhood. Nothing moved, but he felt it. They were being watched. This wasn't just a community. It was a trap. By the end of the first week, Ethan's mailbox was more stuffed with HOA warnings than actual mail. Violation 7. Children's chalk art constitutes defacement of shared property. Violation 8. Dog leash extends beyond regulation length. Violation 9. Unapproved shade of curtain visible from the street. It was absurd. "They're trying to break us down," Ethan muttered as he sifted through the stack at the kitchen counter. Maya and Caleb sat quietly nearby, their crayons still, their eyes nervous. "They said I can't draw on the sidewalk anymore," Mia whispered. Ethan gave her a smile, reassuring on the outside, burning on the inside. "Draw all you want. I'll deal with them." But every time he walked out the door, the neighborhood watched him. Not just passively, actively. Curtains shifted. Garage doors creaked open just wide enough to reveal someone standing there, staring. The HOA patrol golf carts drove by every hour, day and night, always slowing in front of his house. He began checking the locks twice, then 3 times. Late one evening, as he sat on the porch sipping coffee, a figure approached in the darkness. The air felt heavier. It was Linda Graff again. "Mr. Cole," she said smoothly, "we've noticed a pattern of resistance." He said nothing. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I'd hate for your children to become community liabilities." That was it. No smile this time. Just those words, delivered like a scalpel. Ethan stood slowly. You're threatening my family." Linda tilted her head. "I'm warning you, for their benefit. There's a reason Cedar Ridge runs so perfectly. We remove the chaos before it spreads." He took a step closer. "Try anything, and I promise you'll regret it." She backed away without another word and disappeared into the night. The next morning, things escalated. Caleb's bike, locked and chained, was gone, simply vanished. Then came the knock. Not on the front door, on the kid's bedroom window. Mia screamed. Ethan bolted outside, barefoot and ready to fight. But the yard was empty. The only sign of disturbance was a single HOA regulation pamphlet left on the grass. He scanned the neighborhood. No movement, no sound, just that same drone buzz in the distance, far off, but always circling. That night, Ethan installed his own cameras, military grade, hidden, independent power. He wanted proof. What he saw the next morning froze his blood. At exactly 3:17 a.m., two figures in maintenance uniforms approached the house from the woods behind the property. They didn't go to the front. They crept along the side, straight to the children's windows. One of them reached out and touched the glass. Then, as if sensing something, both figures looked up directly into the camera. Not startled, not scared, just smiling. And then they vanished back into the dark. Ethan watched the footage 5 times. Someone wasn't just watching his kids. They were planning something. And it had already begun. The morning of the vanishing was like any other. The sun rose lazily behind the perfectly pruned trees, casting a golden glow over Cedar Ridge, making everything seem unnaturally serene. Ethan had already spent an hour scanning the footage from last night, still haunted by those smiling figures outside his children's windows. He was restless, something in his gut telling him something would break, but he couldn't put his finger on what. Mia and Caleb had already eaten breakfast and were getting ready for school. They were unusually quiet, their energy subdued as though they sensed the growing tension. "I'll be back in a bit," Ethan called, grabbing his jacket and keys. He didn't know why, but something in the back of his mind made him want to check the perimeter, make sure everything was locked down before leaving. But when he returned, just an hour later, he felt it. The house was too silent. "Mia, Caleb," he called, his voice echoing in the stillness. No answer. A creeping sense of dread washed over him. His eyes darted across the kitchen. No backpacks, no shoes, nothing out of place, except for the empty silence. He checked the bedrooms. Empty. Ethan's heart pounded. His thoughts scrambled. No one had been in the house. No noise. No warning. No trace. Frantically, he pulled out his phone and dialed their school. They hadn't arrived. He called Mita's best friend's house. She hadn't seen them either. Then the knock came. It wasn't a gentle tap this time. It was forceful. Someone was at the door. Ethan bolted down the hall to the front door, his pulse racing. He opened it to find a neatly folded letter on the doorstep. It was simple, formal, and chilling in its cold tone. "We have taken your children for their own protection. We trust this will not be necessary again. You will find them when the time is right." Ethan's mind whirled, fighting the panic that was bubbling up. Taken? Who the hell did this? Why? Without wasting another second, he rushed to the backyard, hoping against hope that the twins were just hiding, playing a game. But as he reached the fence, his breath caught in his throat. The gate was wide open. His eyes locked onto something on the ground. Caleb's favorite toy car, abandoned just inside the yard, wheels still spinning as if it had been dropped in a hurry. A cold wind blew, carrying the distant hum of something unnatural. Ethan looked up at the security camera he'd installed the night before. His stomach dropped. The footage was gone. He scrambled through the settings, his hands trembling. The data was wiped, erased. The system had been tampered with. They were here, in his house, in his life, and they'd covered their tracks. Ethan stood frozen for a moment, the weight of the situation crashing down on him. His mind was racing, but there was only one thing he knew for sure. The HOA wasn't just some overzealous neighborhood watch. They were something darker, something far more dangerous. And they had his kids. Ethan didn't waste time. His phone call to the police had barely gotten through before he slammed it down in frustration. The officer had sounded sympathetic, but the response was predictable. "We'll look into it," he had said. But without any signs of forced entry or any leads, there's not much we can do. Not much. His children were gone, taken, and the system was already failing him. His mind raced, but there was no room for panic. He had trained for situations like this. The last thing he needed was to second-guess himself. Ethan's hands were steady as he grabbed his emergency bag. Old habits die hard. A lockpick kit, a few well-hidden weapons, and his phone with access to encrypted networks. The HOA was involved, and that meant something far more sinister was at play. He began with the house. The walls seemed to close in around him as he moved through the rooms. Everything was too quiet. Maya and Caleb's absence felt like a heavy weight pressing against his chest. The place that had once been their home now felt like a prison, and the walls seemed to hum with an unsettling energy. First, he checked their rooms. Nothing seemed out of place, except for one small thing: a fresh footprint in the dust underneath Caleb's bed. It wasn't his. Ethan crouched down, inspecting it carefully. The shape was odd, too large to be a child's, but too small to be an adult's. His breath caught as he realized. This wasn't just any footprint. It was a boot print. From the corner of his eye, he caught a shadow in the hallway. He spun, but there was no one there. Not again. His mind flashed to the smiling figures from the footage. Was the HOA involved in this? Or was there something else lurking in the dark corners of this suburban paradise? His instincts kicked in, and he headed straight for the basement. The door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit space below. The air was thick with mildew, and the faint scent of something metallic. Ethan's flashlight scanned the walls. Nothing strange at first, just old boxes of Christmas decorations and old furniture. But as he moved deeper, he noticed something odd. One of the walls seemed to have been tampered with. It wasn't obvious at first. The wallpaper seemed slightly different, as if it had been patched up. The seams were faint, but Ethan's trained eye could spot the signs. He moved toward it, pressing his hand against the wall. It gave slightly under his touch, a faint groan of wood behind the surface. His pulse quickened. There was something here. With a few precise movements, he pried open the hidden door. The darkness beyond the wall swallowed him whole as he stepped inside, the beam of his flashlight dancing over the walls. The air was thick, stagnant. What he found chilled him to his core. Lined up against the walls were dozens of files, neatly stacked and labeled in a meticulous fashion. Each file had a name on it. Children's names. One of the files stood out, Mia and Caleb's. His hand shook as he pulled it from the stack and flipped it open. Inside were psychological profiles, detailed charts, and even photographs. His children, their smiling faces staring back at him from glossy, professionally taken photos. The last page sent a jolt of terror through his veins. Stage 3. Relocation scheduled for Subject C/M. Prepare for full integration into controlled facility. His mind raced. Controlled facility. What the hell was this? Ethan's heart pounded as the sound of footsteps echoed from above. Someone was coming. It wasn't just the HOA. This was bigger. And now, they were coming for him. Ethan didn't need to think twice. He slammed the file shut and shoved it into his jacket. The footsteps from above were drawing closer, echoing ominously through the house. They were coming. They knew he was here. He couldn't stay. Not with this discovery. His mind raced as he bolted up the stairs, moving silently, every sense heightened. He had to get out, had to think. He needed answers. They had his kids, and the more he uncovered, the clearer it became. Cedar Ridge wasn't just a pristine community. It was something far darker, something twisted. He grabbed his phone, dialing the number he'd set up for emergencies, a friend from the old days, and whispered the bare minimum of what he knew. "They have my kids. I need you to track something. Fast." "Where are you?" the voice asked, low and tense. "I'm still in the house. I'll send you the coordinates in a second." Without waiting for a response, he opened the back door, and the cool night air hit him like a slap. He sprinted around the side of the house, his heart hammering in his chest, his mind constantly on alert. The sound of the footsteps faded behind him, but he didn't slow down. He needed information. The basement, the hidden wall. Bunker 9. What was it? A controlled facility. Was that what he was dealing with? His phone buzzed. His friend's response was clear. "I got a location ping. There's an abandoned warehouse complex 20 miles out. You need to move. Fast." Ethan didn't hesitate. He dropped the phone back into his pocket and jumped into his truck, revving the engine as he sped out of the neighborhood, past the pristine homes that now felt like a nightmare. The road ahead was dark and empty, nothing but the flickering glow of street lamps and the sharp sound of tires tearing through asphalt. The directions led him deeper into the forest, an area that had once seemed isolated and peaceful. Now, it was just another layer of the web. The trees grew denser, the roads narrower. Then, as his headlights cut through the darkness, he saw it. A sprawling industrial complex, the kind of place you'd expect to find abandoned after decades of disuse. But this place was active. Lights flickered through the grime-covered windows. Shadows moved behind the gates. Ethan parked his truck far back, hidden under a canopy of trees. He had to approach carefully. No mistakes. This was it. The towering walls of the complex loomed over him like a prison. He could hear the low hum of machinery inside, distant and rhythmic, almost mechanical. As he crept closer, his pulse quickened. He needed to get inside. But as he neared the entrance, a voice crackled through the radio in his jacket. His friend's voice, terse. "They know you're coming." "No way." Before Ethan could respond, a series of floodlights clicked on, blinding him. The sound of a vehicle approaching grew louder, and the screech of tires cutting through gravel echoed in the night. He flattened against the wall, holding his breath. From around the corner, a sleek black van appeared, its tinted windows concealing the occupants. The van slowed to a stop, and the doors slid open. A figure stepped out, tall, cloaked in shadows, his movements deliberate. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The HOA. But it wasn't just Linda Graff this time. It was someone higher up, someone who clearly didn't need to hide behind the community's perfect exterior. The figure reached into his jacket and pulled out a file. The very same file Ethan had found earlier. The file with Mia and Caleb's names. Ethan gritted his teeth. This ends tonight. He had no choice but to confront them. But what if they were ready for him? What if this was the trap? Ethan's mind raced. They were ready for him. The van had stopped, and the tall figure, cloaked in darkness, was now standing just a few feet away, holding the file. The same file that contained his children's future. The future they were controlling. Every muscle in his body tensed, ready to spring into action. His hand hovered near the hidden gun under his jacket, but he couldn't shoot his way out of this. Not unless it was absolutely necessary. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and if he made a wrong move now, his kids would be lost forever. His breath was shallow, his focus laser sharp. He needed to find a way inside that building, into Bunker 9. That was where they were keeping Mia and Caleb. That was where the truth lay. The figure in front of him turned, walking slowly toward the warehouse. Ethan's pulse quickened. This was his chance. He moved without a sound, creeping through the darkness, just a shadow among shadows. His feet barely made a sound on the gravel as he approached the gate. The van's engine hummed as it idled nearby, the sound of conversation muffled from within. Ethan crouched low, slipping around the side of the building. The cold metal of the warehouse walls felt like ice against his fingers as he searched for an entrance. He didn't have much time. Every second felt like a lifetime. He spotted a side door, rusted and unguarded, but it was locked. Of course. He pulled out his lockpick kit, his hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He could hear the voices of the men in the van growing louder, their conversation indistinct but getting closer. Hurry. With a quick twist, the lock clicked open. The door creaked on its hinges, a sound far too loud for comfort. He winced but forced the door fully open, slipping inside just as the van doors slammed shut behind him. The warehouse was huge, empty save for the occasional stack of crates and the faint hum of industrial machines deeper within. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of oil and decay. Ethan moved through the maze of crates, his eyes darting in every direction. The shadows seemed to stretch on forever. His instincts screamed at him. They knew he was here. A door at the far end of the warehouse stood slightly ajar. The flicker of fluorescent lights pulled out from the crack. He was getting closer. Suddenly, a sound, a footstep, echoed from behind him. His body tensed. Too late. Ethan spun around, his hand moving to the gun, but he stopped himself. It wasn't a guard. It was Linda Graff. Her cold, calculating eyes locked onto his, a smile playing at the edge of her lips. "I knew you'd come, Ethan. I was hoping you would." Ethan's heart raced, but he didn't flinch. "Where are my kids?" She took a step closer, the faint smell of perfume mixing with the sterile scent of the building. "Your children are fine. They're where they belong. We're offering them a future." Her voice was smooth, like honey, but it dripped with something darker. "You can't stop what's already in motion. I'll burn this place to the ground if I have to," Ethan said, his voice low and lethal. Linda's eyes glinted. "You think you're the first to try." Before Ethan could react, the sharp sound of a metal door slamming open echoed through the warehouse. Armed men in black tactical gear stepped into the room, blocking the exits. Ethan's fingers tightened on the grip of his gun, but he didn't draw it yet. He needed to think. Linda took another step forward. "You're not going anywhere, Ethan. Not without a choice." Her words rang in his ears, but they didn't make sense. A choice? What was she talking about? Then it hit him. The truth was more horrifying than he'd imagined. The complex. Bunker 9. It wasn't just about his kids. This was a system, an operation. And they were trying to integrate him into it. Ethan's mind was spinning. But one thing was clear. This was no longer just about his kids. It never had been. Linda's smile only deepened, her presence almost suffocating. "You see, Ethan," she said, her voice dripping with a chilling calmness, "we offer solutions. A new world. A world free of chaos, free of uncertainty. Your children will be part of something grand, something controlled." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. His children, his entire family, were being groomed, molded into something they weren't meant to be, a part of this twisted operation. Ethan gritted his teeth, pushing down the surge of rage rising within him. His eyes darted to the heavily armed men now surrounding the perimeter of the warehouse. There was no escape, not without a fight. But then Linda's voice broke through the tension, softer now, almost coaxing. "But you don't have to fight, Ethan. You don't have to lose your family. There's another way. A way to protect them." He didn't trust her, but her words echoed in his mind. What other choice did he have? His back was against the wall. "I'm offering you a place, a role," she continued, her eyes glinting like a predator's. "A role in our system. You'd be working with us, instead of against us. Help us reform society. Help us make the world better." Her smile faltered when Ethan didn't respond. He didn't want to give her the satisfaction of a reaction, but his pulse was pounding. He couldn't let this happen. Linda stepped closer, her voice now just above a whisper. "What do you think would happen if you refuse, Ethan? If you go back to your old life? If you try to run again, we'll take your children. We'll integrate them anyway, and you won't be able to stop it. You'll just be a memory, an obstacle to the greater good." Ethan swallowed hard. His thoughts raced as the reality of her words hit home. There was no escaping this. No matter what he did, no matter what he chose, the system would come for him. For his family. He felt the weight of the decision bearing down on him. Could he really betray everything he believed in just to save his kids? What kind of world would they grow up in if he allowed this system to continue? A world where freedom was a lie, where everything was controlled, where even the children were not their own. But if he rejected them, if he fought back, they wouldn't hesitate. They'd take everything from him. The choice hung in the air like a guillotine. The sharp click of a gun being cocked broke his thoughts. One of the guards, a large man with a scar across his face, stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. Time's up. Ethan's breath caught in his throat, his grip tightening around his gun. Linda looked at the guards, then back at Ethan, her voice now laced with an unsettling finality. "Choose, Ethan. You decide their future, your family's future, your own future." For a moment, the world went still. All the sounds, the distant hum of machinery, the rapid beating of his heart, the shallow breaths of the men closing in, faded into a tense, suffocating silence. Ethan's finger hovered over the trigger, his heart pounding in his chest. The silence hung heavy between them, suffocating in its intensity. Ethan's hand was steady as it gripped the gun, his knuckles white. The cold metal was an anchor to his thoughts, to the reality of what he was about to face. Linda's smile twisted into something almost predatory as she watched him, waiting for his decision. The guards behind her were tense, their hands twitching near their weapons. She was right. The world outside this twisted system, his old life, his fight for freedom, felt so far away. And yet, his family's safety was closer than ever. But at what cost? He couldn't help but wonder what would happen to Mia and Caleb if he gave in. The truth gnawed at him. This wasn't just about survival, it was about their future. About whether they would be free or become just another cog in this controlled machine. "Choose, Ethan." Linda's voice was low, almost coaxing. "There's no turning back." Ethan's eyes flicked from her face to the guards, and then to the door at the far end of the warehouse. His children were inside that building. He could feel their presence, the weight of their absence, like a burning hole in his chest. He knew what was at stake. Time slowed. The walls seemed to close in. His thoughts scrambled, his emotions crashing together in a storm of anger, fear, and determination. Then it happened. The sudden sound, a faint click, followed by the screech of metal doors opening from the far side of the complex. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. They were coming for him. Before anyone could react, the entire room was plunged into chaos. Screams echoed through the building, followed by gunshots, sharp and deafening. Guards rushed forward, but the sound of gunfire grew louder, closer. Someone on the outside, had just entered the fray. They had come for him. Linda's smile vanished in an instant, replaced by wide-eyed panic. She turned sharply, shouting orders to the guards. "Stop them, now." But it was too late. Ethan's world exploded into movement. He didn't wait for another moment. His instincts kicked in, and with the sheer force of his will, he lunged. His gun was raised, but he fired only once, a single precise shot that took down the closest guard. The others hesitated, just long enough for him to break through their line. He was moving, fast, fluid, desperate. Mia, Caleb. He didn't care about the guards anymore. He was a blur of motion, a single goal in his mind. Get to them. He heard voices shouting, heavy boots pounding on the floor. Linda was yelling, but Ethan was too far ahead. He reached the door that had been ajar, and with one swift movement, he kicked it open. There they were. Mia and Caleb, their faces pale, their eyes wide with fear, but alive. Alive. Tears burned in Ethan's eyes as he rushed forward. grabbing them both by the arms. "We're getting out of here. Now." The twins clung to him, their small hands gripping his jacket as they ran. The chaos outside was deafening, but Ethan kept his focus, pushing them forward. "Don't let go of me," he whispered, his voice hoarse, his heart a frantic drumbeat in his chest. They reached the back exit just as the entire building seemed to come alive with activity. Flashing lights, shouting. The storm was here. But Ethan didn't stop. He didn't care about the bloodied fight unfolding behind him. His kids were with him. His family was together again. That was all that mattered. As they emerged into the night, Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The sound of sirens wailed in the distance, and the chaos continued behind them. But ahead, there was only the uncertain road. There was no guarantee of safety, no way to know what the future held. But one thing was certain. He had made his choice, and now, for the first time in what felt like forever, he was free.